فاحريح الطيب والعود والفرح والخير ممدود يا هلا
ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. عباد الله, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, brothers and sisters, to this class. This is the class of the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in the last couple of sessions, we've been going over the historical background leading up to the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And last week we talked a lot about the story of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and Prophet Ismail. So inshallah today we'll start off with a few quiz questions taken from last week's class, and we'll go to the first slide there. Who were the two sacrificed ones that we talked about in the last session? Who are the two sacrificed ones? Okay, very good. They are Prophet Ismail and Abdullah, father of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Very good. Another question. When Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he left his wife Hajar and his son Ismail in an uncultivated valley, he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide for their needs, as in Surah Ibrahim. So these statements below, rearrange them in order of importance, with the most important first, of the needs according to Prophet Ibrahim. So if you can recall in the session last time, Prophet Ibrahim, when he got out of sight of his family, he turned around and faced the Kaaba and he made this very well-known dua. And in this, it states his idea of the needs for his family settling in this new place. So the first one there, provide them with fruits, the physical needs, establish the prayer, make the hearts of the people inclined towards them, or have a social life. What are they in the correct order? Okay, we've got a few answers there. Okay, the first one is to establish the prayer. This is what Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, what he said in his dua. So the first correct answer is B. The next one, make the hearts of the people inclined towards them. This is referring to having a social life. So the next one is C. And the last one there, provide them with the fruits or the physical needs. Okay, so that is A. B, C, and A. And I think most people got that correct. MashaAllah, is excellent. Okay, moving on to the next question. Which surah in the Holy Quran tells the story of a pre-Islamic civilization in Yemen which built a dam to provide a source of water which could be used all year round? What's the name of that surah in the Holy Quran? MashaAllah, well done. This is Surah Saba. And the kingdom of the Saba people grew to huge numbers due to this water supply in the middle of the Arabian desert. Okay, so it's also mentioned in the Holy Quran that because of their wealth and cultivation, they didn't feel any hardship usually associated with traveling because they had a continuous series of villages or colonies along the traveling routes across the desert. So there were plenty of places to rest and to eat for travelers going across the desert. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroy the dam of the Saba people? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroy the dam of the Saba people? Very good. Is correct answer there, because of their disobedience to Allah Ta'ala's message. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed their dam which flooded a vast expanse across Yemen. Okay? So as a result of that, and before that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had commanded those people to do certain things and they denied that. So due to their disobedience, this is what happened. Due to that flood, there was a huge migration out of Yemen, and this forced the people of Yemen into Najd, Hijaz, the area adjacent to the Red Sea, Iraq, and the rest of Sham. The tribe of Jurhum too was one of those tribes that ended up moving out of Yemen into the Hijaz or to the Makkah region, where they found Hajar and her child Ismail. So they asked her permission to settle in that area, where later on the Zamzam well, at that time the Zamzam well was located, and she agreed on one condition. On what condition did Hajar allow Jurhum tribe to settle with her? Okay, this was at a time where the well of Zamzam had appeared, and the tribe of Jurhum, they had seen birds hovering over this area, so they thought there must have been something there. Sent some people to investigate. They found Hajar and her son, and they asked her if they could settle in that place. What condition did Ibrahim's wife Hajar ask of Jurhum to settle with her? Okay, well done. The answer's there on the screen. Her condition was that the water belongs to her and her son Ismail. But she did want them to stay, and so Ismail grew up with them, he learned the Arabic language from them, and he married from their tribe, thus starting the lineage, the family of the Prophet ﷺ. During this period, who maintained the religious authority in Mecca? During this period, who maintained religious authority in Mecca? Okay, well done. The answer's there on the screen. Prophet Ismail, alayhi salam, and continued on with his descendants. So the tribe of Jurhum, they maintained the political leadership, and that went on for a very long time in Mecca until those people became corrupt. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Khuza'a tribe to expel Jurhum from Mecca. What two things did Jurhum do before leaving Mecca? What two things did Jurhum do before leaving Mecca? MashaAllah, well done. Plenty of correct answers there on the screen. They covered over the well of Zamzam and erased all of its marks. And the second thing, they stole all of the treasures which were inside the Kaaba. So at that stage, the Khuza'a tribe, they now became the new leaders of Mecca, while the descendants of Prophet Ismail, by that time, they'd already increased in number, branched out and spread all over the Arabian Peninsula. But there was one branch that remained in Mecca, and that branch was called Quraysh. And a man called Qusay bin Kilab, he was able to unify the Quraysh, make them united, and to lead a revolt against Khuza'a tribe. He was able to drive them out completely from Mecca. So for the very first time, all of the powers, including both political and religious powers, were under his authority. Qusay bin Kilab, the head of Quraysh. Who can tell us who is the great-grandfather of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, whose nickname comes from the Arabic word for the crushing of bread and soup given to feed the pilgrims in Mecca? Very good. The correct answer there is Hashim, and he was son of Abdul Manaf. His real name was Amr, and he was grandson of this man we were talking about, Qusay bin Kilab, the first political and religious leader in Mecca from the Quraysh. So Amr, his nickname was Hashim, and he was given this name after he introduced crushed bread into the soup fed to the pilgrims, and the word for crushing in Arabic is Hashim. So Hashim, he had a son, and his son's name was Shayba. Hashim, he died on a business trip to Palestine, so Shayba, his son, was raised by his family in Medina. When Shayba was 8 years old, Hashim's brother, Al-Muttalib, claimed custody of his nephew, saying that he belonged to the noblest family of Quraysh. And now he has to go back and learn about his heritage, his family, and start assuming responsibilities in Mecca. When Al-Muttalib and his nephew Shayba entered Mecca, the people thought Shayba was his slave, so they called him Abdul Muttalib. And this is the grandfather of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his real name is Shayba. Abdul Muttalib had a series of dreams. What were they about? MashaAllah, very good. The dream was about digging the well of Zamzam, and he had a dream. Someone came to him and said, dig Tayyiba, and the following night the same voice came to him in his dream saying, dig the precious. Third night the voice came and said, dig Zamzam. Abdul Muttalib asked, and what is Zamzam? The voice responded, Zamzam, it will never fail or dry up, and it will water the grand pilgrims. Okay, so in this dream, towards the end, he saw a number of clues to the location of the well of Zamzam, which at that stage had been unknown for around 300 years or something like that, ever since Jurhum had filled the well up and covered over all the marks of it. The next day after the dream, Abdul Muttalib, he was going around the Kaaba and he saw those clues from his dream. So he and his son dug a hole and eventually they found the well of Zamzam. Okay, we're continuing on today. Just one more session today before we deal with the from the time of the birth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So today we're just going to talk about, inshallah, what was the situation religion-wise on the Arabian Peninsula leading up to the time of the birth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So inshallah, we're going to talk about the religions at the time, some of the religions that came into the Arabian Peninsula, introduction of idols and stuff like that. And this is to get a better understanding of that background of the society in which Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived at that time. So in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were three religions in the Arabian Peninsula: idol worshipping, Judaism, and Christianity. Most of the Arabs, they'd complied with the call of Ismail alayhi salam and professed the religion of his father Ibrahim. They had worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, professed his oneness, and followed his religion a long time until they forgot a part of what they had been reminded of. So the Arabs on the Arabian Peninsula, they started off as Muslims. So what went wrong? The people of Ibrahim's religion, they followed his religion until the time of a chief of Khuza'a tribe, and his name was Amr bin Luhay. So he was well known for righteousness, charity, reverence, care for the religion, and was granted unreserved love and obedience by his tribesmen. Amr traveled to Asham, that's the area of Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, and Jordan, where he found idols. In Syria, he saw people worshipping those idols. And this was something that he approved of and believed to be righteous, since Syria was the center of messengers and of scriptures. So he asked the people about these idols. They told him that these are intermediaries between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they told him how they go to different idols for different problems and how these idols would appeal on their behalf to God. Amr bin Luhay, he was quite amused by the idea, and he thought that this is what the people of Arabia need. They need someone to appeal for them to their Lord. Amr bin Luhay, he asked the people of Asham to give him an idol so he could take it back to his people. They gave him a very big idol called Hubal. He carried Hubal with him back to Mecca and he established it next to the Kaaba. He told his people, this idol will intercede on your behalf to Allah Ta'ala, and he called the people to worship it. Amr bin Luhay was the leader of Khuza'a tribe. He was a very generous, strong, and well-respected leader amongst his people. They admired him so much that his words were taken as law. And back then, Mecca was the center of religious authority in the Arabian Peninsula. And bringing an idol into Mecca, it was like bringing a brand new innovation in the religion of the Arab nation. This idol worship then spread rapidly from the religious center of Mecca, and also people that were willing to follow him because Amr bin Luhay, he was really respected by the people. And so this now became a business, and idols were made in Mecca and exported to other tribes. So idol worshipping became common. There were all kinds of idols for various purposes, and the Kaaba was now surrounded by 360 idols, and shirk was in every direction. So this is how the religion of Prophet Ismail changed. In a narration by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I saw Amr bin Luhay al-Khuza'i dragging his intestines in the hellfire. And this is because he was the first man to introduce idol worshipping in Arabia. Polytheism and worship of idols became the most prominent feature of the religion of the pre-Islamic Arabs, despite them claiming to follow Ibrahim's religion. Traditions and ceremonies of the worship of their idols had been mostly created by Amr bin Luhay and were deemed as good innovations rather than deviations from Ibrahim's religion. Some of the other practices of the Arabs at that time included discovering things about the unknown by casting of azlam, which were featherless arrows, which were made of three kinds, one showing yes, another one was no, and a third one was blank. So they used this method to decide matters like traveling or marriage and stuff like that. If the lot showed yes, they would do it. If no, they would delay it for the next year. They also used to have a deep conviction in the words of soothsayers, diviners, and astrologers. Some days and months and particular animals were regarded as bad omens. They also believed that the soul of a murdered person would fly in the wilderness and would never rest until revenge was taken. In short, superstition was rampant. Such was the religious life in the Arabian Peninsula, consisting of polytheism, idolatry, and superstition. Judaism, Christianity, and other religions, however, could easily find their ways into the Arabian Peninsula. As for Judaism, it was introduced into Yemen by a man called Asad Abi Karb. He had gone to fight in Yathrib, and there he embraced Judaism. And then he went back, taking with him two rabbis from Banu Qurayza to instruct the people of Yemen in this new religion. Judaism found a fertile soil there to propagate and gain adherents. And after the death of Asad Abi Karb, his son Yusuf Dhul Nawas rose to power. He attacked the Christian community in Najran and ordered them to embrace Judaism. When they refused, he ordered that a pit of fire be dug and all of the Christians be thrown in to burn. Estimates say that something like 20,000 Christians were killed in that massacre. Then there's the story in Sahih Muslim of the king and the young boy. And the scholars attribute this story to Dhul Nawas and the Christians in Yemen. The Prophet ﷺ said, there lived a king before you, and he had a magician. As the magician grew old, he said to the king, I've grown old. Send some young boy to me so that I can teach him magic. The king sent a young boy to him so that he could train him in magic. On his way to the magician, the young boy found a monk sitting there. The young boy listened to the monk's talk, and he was impressed by it. It then became his habit that on the way to the magician, he met the monk and sat there listening to him, and he would come to the magician late. The magician beat the young boy because of his delay. The young boy made a complaint about that to the monk. And so the monk said to the young boy, when you feel afraid of the magician, say, members of my family detain me. And when you feel afraid of your family, you should say, the magician detained me. It so happened that there came a huge beast of prey, and it blocked the way of the people. And the young boy said, I will come to know today whether the magician is superior or the monk is superior. So he picked up a stone and he said, if Allah Ta'ala, if the affair of the monk is dearer to you than the affair of the magician, cause death to this animal so that the people should be able to move about freely. He threw a stone at the animal and killed it, and the people began to move about on the paths freely. The young boy then came to that monk and informed him, and the monk said, boy, today you are superior to me. Your affair has come to a stage where I find that you would soon be put to trial, and in case you are put to trial, don't tell anyone about me. The young boy, he began to treat the blind and those suffering from leprosy, and he in fact began to cure people from all kinds of illnesses. When a companion of the king who had gone blind heard about him, he came to him with numerous gifts, and he said, if you cure me, all of these things collected together here would be yours. The young boy said, I myself, I do not cure anyone. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who cures, and if you affirm faith in Allah Ta'ala, I shall also supplicate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure you. The blind man, he affirmed his faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah Ta'ala cured him, and he came to the king and sat by his side as he used to sit before. The king said to him, who restored your eyesight? He said, my Lord. And thereupon the king said, it means that your Lord is one besides me. The man who was cured said, my Lord and your Lord is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The king took a hold of him and tortured him until he told the king about the young boy. The young boy was thereby summoned, and the king said to him, oh boy, it's been conveyed to me that you've become so much proficient in your magic that you cure the blind and those suffering from leprosy, and you do such and such things. Thereupon the boy said, I do not cure anyone. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who cures. The king took a hold of him and began to torment him. And so the young boy was forced to disclose information about the monk. The monk was thus summoned, and it was said to him, you should turn back on your religion. The monk, however, he refused to do so. The king ordered for a sword to be brought, and it was done. The king placed it in the middle of his head and tore it into parts until a part fell down. Then the attendant of the king was brought, and it was said to him, turn back from your religion. He refused to do so, and so the sword was placed in the midst of his head, and it was torn until a part fell down. Then that young boy, he was brought, and it was said to him, turn back from your religion. He refused to do so, and he was handed over to a group of the king's courtiers. The king then said to them, take this young boy to such and such a mountain, make him climb up that mountain, and when you reach its top, ask him to renounce his faith. But if he refuses to do so, then throw him down the mountainside. So they took him and made him climb up the mountain, and the young boy said, oh Allah Ta'ala, save me from them any way you like. And then the mountain began to shake violently, and they all fell. The young boy then came walking to the king. The king said to him, what has happened to your companions? The young boy said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has saved me from them. He again handed the young boy to some of his courtiers, and he said, take him and carry him in a small boat, and when you reach the middle of the ocean, ask him to renounce his religion. But if he does not renounce his religion, then throw him in the waters. And so they took him, and he said, oh Allah Ta'ala, save me from them and what they want to do to me. It was quite soon that the boat was overturned, and they were drowned. Then the young boy, he came walking to the king, and the king said to him, what has happened to your companions? He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has saved me from them. And he said to the king, you cannot kill me until you do what I asked you to do. And he said, what is that? He said, you should gather people in an open area and hang me by the trunk of a tree. Then take a hold of an arrow from the quiver and say, in the name of Allah Ta'ala, the Lord of the young boy. Then shoot an arrow. And if you do that, then you would be able to kill me. So the king called the people in an open plain and tied the young boy to the trunk of a tree. Then he took a hold of an arrow from his quiver, and then he placed an arrow in his bow, and he said, in the name of Allah Ta'ala, the Lord of the young boy. Then he shot an arrow, and it hit the young boy in his temple. The young boy placed his hands on his temple where the arrow had hit him, and he died. And the people said, we affirm our faith in the Lord of this young boy. We affirm our faith in the Lord of this young boy, and we affirm our faith in the Lord of this young boy. So the courtiers, they came to the king and they said to him, do you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has actually done what you aim to avoid? The people, they have affirmed their faith in the Lord. The king then commanded ditches to be dug at important points in the paths. When these ditches were dug and a fire was lit in them, it was said to the people, he who does not give up the young boy's religion will be thrown in the fire, or it would be said to them, jump into it. The people knew that death was coming, but did not renounce the religion. And then a woman came with her baby, and she felt hesitant in jumping into the fire. Then the baby said to its mother, "O mother, endure this ordeal, for it is the truth." Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said there are 3 people who spoke at such a young age, and this infant was one of them. And this is the story talked about in Surah Al-Buruj in the Holy Quran. So even though these people were burned alive and they ceased to exist, and the king, he seemed to have won, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Buruj that for the believers, that is the great success. Victory is for them because they held firmly their faith until the last moment. So entering paradise is victory. Even though they were brutally killed, they had won. And the scholars, they attribute this hadith to Dhul Nawas and the Christians in Yemen. There was one person who survived the massacre of those Christians in Yemen, and this person, he traveled all the way to visit the Roman emperor. He went to the emperor because he was a Christian. So this man, he went and told the emperor what they had been through, and he asked for his help. The Roman emperor said, "We're too far away from Yemen, but what I can do is send a message to the Negus of Abyssinia, and he can help you." So the Najashi of Abyssinia, he was also Christian. So the Roman emperor sent the message to him. The king of Abyssinia, then he sent an army, and it was led by a general, and he was named Ariyat. And Ariyat invaded Yemen and fought with Dhul Nawas. Dhul Nawas, when he lost, he committed suicide. The Abyssinians were then ruling over a part of Yemen, and they did this as revenge for the Christians who were killed by the Jews of Yemen. Ariyat, he ruled over Yemen for a while, and one of his army generals, he staged a revolt against him, and the Abyssinians in Yemen, they were now divided. Some groups, they were with Ariyat, and the other group was with the new leader called Abraha al-Ashram. So these groups, they were fighting each other. Ariyat, he told Abraha, "If we kill each other, the people of the land will take over. So how about we have a one-to-one fight?" But Abraha, he made a secret agreement with some of his security guards that if they see him losing, that they will jump in to help him. Ariyat, he was described as a tall and thin man, and Abraha was short and fat. And there were people surrounding them while they were fighting. Ariyat, he was able to strike Abraha from the top, and he cut off his nose. When that happened, the security guards, they came in and they killed Ariyat. Abraha now took over, and he was the one who was ruling Yemen. Abraha wanted to change the religion of the people and force them to become Christians. And since the Arabs were attached to the Kaaba, he decided to build a rival Christian version of the Kaaba in Yemen. Therefore, he built a huge cathedral called Al-Qulais. And this building was described as a wonderful piece of art. And this cathedral, it was built to compete with the Kaaba. So there was one man who didn't like this idea of the cathedral, and so he went into Al-Qulais and he defecated in it, and he took his waste and spread it all over the walls, and then he ran away. Abraha was told that the person who did this was from the people of the Kaaba in Mecca, to which the Arabs made pilgrimage. Abraha got so furious that he decided that he must get rid of the Kaaba. Abraha mobilized an army and marched towards Mecca, but there was some resistance along the way. One of the chiefs of a tribe, his name was Nufail, he resisted, but he was defeated and captured as a prisoner of war. When Abraha reached Taif, the people of Taif assisted Abraha, and one of them offered to be a guide for him, and that man's name was Abu Rigal. Abu Rigal, he went with the army, but immediately after the army left Taif, he died. Abraha made it to the outskirts of Mecca. There were some shepherds and camels grazing there, and Abraha took possession of them, and they belonged to the grandfather of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib, he came out of Mecca to meet with Abraha. Abdul Muttalib happened to be a friend of Nufail, who was captured as a prisoner of war. Nufail, during the journey, became friends with a man called Unais. Unais was a very important figure in Abraha's army. It was the driver of the elephant. So Abdul Muttalib, he came to Nufail and told him that he wanted to meet with Abraha. Nufail told him that he will arrange a meeting through his friend Unais. Unais arranged a meeting with Abraha, and Abraha welcomed Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib walked in. He was described as a man with a very strong presence, and people would be in awe of him just by seeing him. And when Abdul Muttalib entered, Abraha held him in high esteem, even though they haven't even talked as yet. When the people would come to meet Abraha, he would sit on a very high throne, and the people would sit down under his feet. When Abraha saw Abdul Muttalib, he didn't feel comfortable at all, having Abdul Muttalib sit under his feet. But he also could allow Abdul Muttalib to sit with him on his throne. So what he did was he came down from the throne and he sat with Abdul Muttalib on the floor, and he told the interpreter to ask Abdul Muttalib what he wanted. Abdul Muttalib, straight away, he told the interpreter, Abraha has taken possession of 200 of my camels, and I want them back. Abraha responded, when I saw you, I had so much respect for you, but I've lost it all. I am coming to destroy your honor and the honor of your fathers. I'm coming to destroy the center of your livelihood. I'm coming to destroy the Kaaba, and you are asking me about camels? Abdul Muttalib responded, I am the owner of the camels, so I am responsible for them, and this house belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah ta'ala will protect it. Abraha ordered Abdul Muttalib's camels to be returned back to him. Abdul Muttalib, he went back to Mecca, and he told the people of Mecca, do not fight, withdraw out of Mecca. So Abdul Muttalib, he gave his people clear instructions. They all went up to the mountains, and Abdul Muttalib was the last person to leave. Before he left, he was hanging the cloth of the Kaaba on the handle of the door of the Kaaba, and he was praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect his house, to protect this house, and then he left. So Abraha, he now issued instructions to the army to march in advance. But the elephant refused to move. When they turned the elephant to a different direction, he would run. But when they turned him towards Makkah, he would sit down. So this is a miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's said that this man, Unais, released himself from chains and spoke in the ear of the elephant and said, "This is the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do not attack it." And then he ran away. But whatever the reason was, the elephant didn't move. So they started beating the elephant and poking it with their spears, and the elephant was bleeding, but it refused to move. Eventually they decided they were going to have to leave the elephant. They moved forward. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then sent towards them an army of soldiers. And anything can be a soldier of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It could be the water, the wind, or animals. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent an army of birds, and every bird carried with it missiles that were sent on the army of Abraha that destroyed all of them. And this event was recorded in Surah Al-Fil. So these are the events leading up to the year in which Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. He was born in the year of the elephant. So we'll stop at that point.
فاح ريح الطيب والعود والفرح والخير ممدود.